Hey everybody, this week we're going to talk the band Slaughter. Mark Slaughter, Dana Strum and company. Got a bunch to get through, so let's get to it. Hey everybody, it's a snowman with too loud, too old music.com. Welcome back to the collection. This week we're going to talk about a band from the 1990 and on, Slaughter. They came in right at the time that I guess hair metal was about to die. But, they still put out a bunch of albums and some really good stuff too. Now, they got their start basically. It was Dana Strum and Mark Slaughter in the band Vinnie Vincent Invasion. This is the second album of Vinnie Vincent Invasion called All Systems Go. And it's a much better album than the debut. I have to admit to that. Mark is a great addition to it, but it's Vinnie Vincent. There's a lot of shredding, and they didn't actually end very well on good terms. So here is the original band. Got Dana and Mark here. Of course, everyone knows Vinny, and then Bob Rock on the end, or Bobby Rock on here on the end. So this is an original album. It's got the insert, the sleeve. I don't keep the vinyl in it. And then it's just a regular black vinyl um, on the Chrysalis label. So now this album, it did pretty good. But the band broke up. They, Vinny was spending too much money. Chrysalis pretty much dropped Vinny, but they just transferred the contract over to Mark and Dana, and that's how kind of Slaughter was born. So pretty easy getting a record deal when you're in a band that gets canned, and then they just give you the record deal that was there. So that's really cool. They have put out, I think, 5 albums in their span, so not a lot of music. Even though I think they still tour, or at least Mark still tours and stuff. Mark's done some solo albums and stuff. You know, it's all been really, really good stuff. And it's one of those bands, even though there are 5 albums, there's not really a bad album in the bunch. I probably got into them around 1990. I want to say I saw them when they were opening up for Kiss. And I think they were on the bill, and that was like the first time I'd ever seen them live. And I really liked how their live show. And so I picked up the album, and that's kind of how I got into them there. And of course, they were being played to death on MTV and that type, and the radio and stuff, because they did have some killer ballads and stuff, which we'll get to. So that was my introduction to them. Their first album is "Stick It to You," and that came out in 1990. This was that first album, so they were coming off Vinnie Vincent Invasion. They really were not a big fan of Vinnie Vincent. Here's the inside. Mine is autographed by no one in particular. I think is the person that owned this CD before I bought it. But that's okay. But this album's pretty much a big FU to Vinnie Vincent. And if you listen to the song "Burning Bridges," that was like a diss track. It's pretty much all about him and how bad he is, and well, they're pretty much their viewpoint. I do have it on vinyl. This, I believe, is a 2020 reissue on Friday Music, Capitol Records. Great insert. No, it is not autographed. Those were already on there. Um, but that's okay. I don't have to have an autograph. Um, and then it is on this translucent red vinyl. It's really pretty, pretty vinyl. And there's nothing on here that's not on the CD, I don't think. No, nothing on there that's not already on the CD. Um, I do think the album really did kind of give that middle finger to Vinny, and it was a very successful album. It was full of rockers with Up All Night, Spend My Life, Mad About You, and Desperately. But the ballad was the star on this one. Fly to the Angels is probably one of the best ballads from that era. Maybe not the best, but one of the best. It's a pretty complete album. There are no fillers. It's just solid from beginning to end, and I think it's fantastic debut. So cannot complain with that one. With Stick It To You. So that's their first album. Then they released between that album and the next album, they released a little live EP called Stick It Live. Is that right? Yeah, Stick It Live. Um, there's the back. See if we can get it to come in. And then here is the CD. It's an EP. There are only 5 live tracks on here. You get Burning Bridges, Eye to Eye, Fly to the Angels, Up All Night, Loaded Gun. This is a club edition version, and it's great. I mean, Mark sounds really good back in those days. He sounds fine now. I haven't listened to him in a while, but yeah, I mean, he's got that roughly gravelly little voice. Some people like it, some people don't. I'm a big fan of it. I think he's awesome. And I was out not a few years ago, and I found this on vinyl. So this is Live 5 song collection, Stick It Live. Uh, no insert or anything, so that's okay. And it is original copy, so it is on the Chrysalis label, um, and still in really great shape. So I was real happy to find that on a vinyl. Just never expected to get one. All right, now their second album is called The Wildlife from 1992. Some people have a sophomore slump, and these guys did not. No, it did not sell the 2 million copies that Stick It To You sold. It did go gold, so how can you really complain about going gold? I don't think you can, and that's okay. They didn't really change much from the debut. Why change anything? It was working, but it's starting to become 92. So this is about the time that hair metal was being wiped from the map and very quickly. But the album's amazing. It's got some really great songs on it. I think some of my favorites, the ballads, of course, are the really good ones. Days Gone By and Real Love. Real Love, I think, was the real big hit on that one and is the better of the two ballads there. But don't think it didn't rock out because, man, they had some great rockers with The Wildlife, Reach for the Sky, Shake This Place. I mean, you get exactly what you expect with this album. Now, recently I have picked up a reissue from Kiss My Wax. They did this one and then they did Fear No Evil. I did not get that one on vinyl. Mine is not sealed, but it's still sort of sealed. I just opened it here. It is a gatefold, so I don't really know what it looks like. It's got inserts and stuff, but I did pull out one of the albums, and it is a red. This one's a solid red. Great album, great stickers on there. It is a double LP. Kiss My Wax did a fantastic job on this thing. Let me tell you. No bonus tracks on this particular one. This is just the main album. You could get the box set, which had all this extra stuff, but I didn't. And then, like I said, I forgot to get the Fear No Evil. I think I can still get that, just the regular vinyl, but I just haven't got that one yet. But so, second album, Wild Life, is fantastic. To me, it's just as good. Not quite as good, but it's up there with the debut. All right, then we get their third album, and this is Fear No Evil from 1995. By this time, I think I'd already checked out because I had moved on. Life was getting in the way, growing up and engaged or whatever at that time. So I missed this one when it actually came out. Did get it years later and everything. It's not a bad album. It's not like, I think I listened to it back then, and didn't really care for it too much, but now I kind of like it. And like I said, they don't really have a bad album. I think the biggest problem with this one is Mark's vocals. they're a little, I don't want to say shrill, but they're a little more on this one. And I don't know why, but it bothered me a little bit. But again, great songs on there. There's this bluesy song called Searchin', and there's Let the Good Times Roll, as well as the opener, Live Like There's No Tomorrow. All really great songs, but the rest are just good songs. So not too terrible, but not my favorite. Now, this time, around this time, 1995, 96, they did release a greatest hits called Mass Slaughter, The Best of Slaughter. And it is a solid greatest hits. It's only covering 3 albums, which is fine, but there are 18 tracks. You do get a live track for Flight of the Angels and Up All Night, so you get those twice on here. But again, it's just 18 songs covering the first 3 albums that they've had. So it pretty much gives you, if you want a taste of those 3 albums, this is pretty much a good copy to get for you. If that's really all you want. If you just like the singles, it's really a good CD. So I would recommend getting that. All right, then we're going to jump to 1997, which is not a big jump because I think we were just 96, 95, to their band's 4th album called Revolution. Let me tell you, this, look at the cover, very psychedelic. The whole thing is all real psychedelic and stuff. This was 1997. Hair metal was done. And like a lot of bands from that era, they were trying to be experimental. And they did really, they still have the rock elements. But a lot of times it gets real psychedelic on here. And I have to admit, I really like it. I think this is probably their coolest album. Might not be their best album, but it's really cool. It's really interesting. And if you're looking for something a little bit different, it's worth checking out. American Pie, the opening track, which is not American Pie that you think of, is sensational. It's exciting. It's very different than what you'd expect from them. Not the whole album is not like that, but there are a good chunk of it that does give you that experimental, that psychedelic sound. And also, they do a cover of Joe Walsh's Rocky Mountain Way. That's a really cool choice, really good song, and they do really well with that. Some other beauties on this album are Hard to Say Goodbye. There's a cock rock song called Tongue and Groove with the whole line, put the tongue in your groove. Yeah. Okay, that one is so bad, it's actually kind of good, which is why I mentioned that. I'll say I like Heat of the Moment as well. I can't leave that one out. That's a really good song. It is a valiant effort from the band for trying something new. I applaud them for that, and it makes it a very interesting, exciting album. So, all right. Then we're going to jump 1998, I believe, to Eternal Live. So this is their first full-length live album. It was produced by Dana and Mark. I can't see where it says it was from, but really nice. This one's in really good shape. I love the picture disc on there. It's really nice. But yeah, great live album. You can't go wrong with it. I do enjoy it. I actually just got it on CD recently, so I haven't spent a lot of time with it. It's been a long time since I've heard it. But still, it's a good live album. Good live album. All right. Then we're going to jump to their fifth and final album that came out back in 1999, and it's called Back to Reality. So I think they probably called it Back to Reality because, I think they caught a lot of heat from the fan base with Revolution and how out there that one was. So this one came back and brought them more to the sound that we know. And it's actually a fantastic album. From the opening track, Killing Time, all the way to Nothing Left to Lose. It's the band back in full form and a really great release. I'd say the highlights all here are All Fired Up. Dangerous is really great. The ballad Love is Forever. And there's this really groovy track called On My Own. It's kind of like a step back in time for them. I mean, granted, it's been 10 years since the debut, but it's got a refreshing sound for them going back and doing that stuff. And, we were getting close to the time where the 80s bands and the Hairman's bands were getting ready to come back and be in, you know, people's favor and stuff. And that's all the studio albums I have and the live albums. The only other thing I have is another best of. It's called The Best of Slaughter. This one came out sometime in 2000. 2000, I don't know. I'd have to check because I really don't know. 2006 is when it came out. It's only 10 tracks. So it doesn't really cover much of their career. It's a pretty cheap thing. There's nothing here. So it's just one of those budget releases. But what's interesting about it is there's 4 or 5 songs on here. So half of it is not on the other album, which is awesome. I like the fact that they did just pick 10 songs off the album and do a cheap version. Now they're not the best songs off those albums, but still, it's an interesting thing. This is apparently called the 10 Best series. So whatever label did this, there's probably a bunch of albums out that have that 10 Best series thing on it. So I have to look out to see what else is out there. So, and that's it. That's everything I have for Slaughter. It's a handful of CDs. It's great. Got some vinyl. I need to get Fear No Evil. I think I need that one on vinyl as well. And I think they just reissued Revolution on vinyl. So, the collector in me wants to now get both of those, and then I'd have 4. I just need to get back to reality then. If that one, I don't know, have to see if that one's even out on vinyl. Maybe it'll get reissued soon. It would make a great record store day kind of release. So that's it. So thank you for watching. Please click like, hit subscribe, leave a comment. We'll get back with you as soon as we can, and we'll see you next time on The Collection.